When I think about Minnesota African United, I think
just that platform where like it kind of brings everyone together.
A conduit, for professionals to
learn, educate, and discuss problems and possibly solutions for all Africans to improve the life of Africans in Minnesota.
To me, is that umbrella organization where I believe every African diaspora in Minnesota should belong to.
Minnesota African United seeks to build a bridge between African in the diaspora and African living on the continent to create a marketplace where goods and services can be traded globally.
There are all kinds of professional development opportunities. African immigrants in the state of Minnesota are provided opportunity to be, players, in the economic activities of the state.
If you have the commitment to empower your community, then this is a place for you.
In thriving for the welfare of all Africans within Minnesota, MAU has established 10 working committees with people that are passionate and working around the clock on all issues pertaining to Africa. If your subject of interest is not listed, join us so we can create a committee around your interest.
People like me and you trying to see how we can help and grow ourselves. Remember, if you're not at the table, you're in the menu.
We can decolonize our mind, or at least get that opportunity to see one another not just as West African or East African or Southern Africa, but as African together, trying to solve problem with African solution.
Like the African proverb goes, like you go farther together in order to empower like the whole community to basically rise up.
My name is FATIMA LAWSON, and I am the proud board chair of Minnesota Africans United. I'm also a principal with the St. Paul Public School District. I'm extremely excited to be hosting this event for all of you today. Minnesota Africans United, also known as MAU, was founded in 2017 and has been growing ever since. We are a coalition and statewide organization for all African immigrants in Minnesota. We have a diverse board that is made up of business and education leaders, philanthropists, and community leaders that help move forward our advocacy for the state, representing Africans coming from all 55 countries with over 390,000 immigrants living in Minnesota. We have 11 committees that represent our organization. They are Housing and Workforce Committee, hosts of today's, Members and Public Relations Committee, Business and Economic Development Committee, Education, Training and Emerging Leader Committee, Immigration and Foreign Relations Committee, Healthcare Committee, Agriculture Committee, Unity and Tradition Committee, Civic Engagement and Public Policy Committee, Fundraising and Resource Mobilization Committee, and last, certainly not least, Technology Committee. Today we will hear from experts on housing and resources that would increase stability for African immigrants in Minnesota. A special thank you to our guest speakers and panelists for today's event, which include Jeanne, CRAIN, President and CEO of Bremer Financial Corporation, LIBBY STARLING, Director, Strategic Operations, Community Development and Engagement Division, Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis. NELIMA SITATI MUNENE, Executive Director of the African Career Education and Resources, Inc., Kenya, and also a board member of MAU. LAURETTE LAWSON, Subrogation Associate, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Togo. AYODEJI EMMANUEL OYEBOLA, Principal, Emmright LLC, Business Management and Consulting from Nigeria. PHILLIPS, Mortgage CRA Loan Officer from Bremer Bank. KIER, Assistant Commissioner. Julie GUGIN, President of Minnesota Homeownership Center. Larry Mahoney, Realtor at eXp Realty. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce the Interim Committee Chair of Minnesota Africans United Housing Committee, Mr. KLARK ALOMASSOR. Mr. KLARK is originally from the Central African nation of Togo. KLARK is a financial representative for Foster Klima Incorporated and has 13 plus years of experience in accounting, financing, project management, and client relations management. He is a strategic leader known for exceptional team management skills and driving efficiency to exceed goals. Now it is my esteemed honor to introduce Mr. KLARK ALOMASSOR for his remarks. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. LAWSON, for that wonderful introduction. Minnesota African United Housing Committee was created to increase the wealth through home ownership for African immigrants in Minnesota. Over the years and now, as we approach the post-COVID era, African immigrants have lost their jobs, have reduced their income, risk foreclosures, and other home instability. They have gotten behind on their rent and bills. However, we want to thank the state of Minnesota for rental assistance programs that have been able to stabilize the families and put a roof over their heads during this time. We want to be hopeful for the future of African immigrants in the States to be able to recover from the global pandemic and other challenges that we face, and we will do so by continuing to educate and lean on resources that are available to us, to our families. We are excited to hear from experts in the housing sector that will share experiences, advice, and resources with us today. Without further delay, I would like to kick off our event by introducing our keynote speaker, JEANNE CRAIN. JEANNE CRAIN is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Bremer Financial Corporation, a 15 billion financial services organization with locations in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and North Dakota. As a CEO since November 2016, JEANNE has combined her extensive industry knowledge with decades of leadership experience to advance the community strategy and performance, champion Bremer's purpose and values, and deliver on its commitment to help communities thrive. Let's welcome JEANNE today. Thank you.
All right. Well, good. Thank you so much for that introduction, KLARK. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me with you today. I'm really excited to be here. Congratulations, Dr. LAWSON, and your whole team on this event. You know, as the president and CEO of Bremer, I congratulate you for putting on a virtual event, a webinar like this, of which Bremer is a really proud sponsor. I really appreciate the topic that you're addressing today with this conference because it so aligns with the organizational purpose at Bremer. And in addition, it truly is a topic that is close to my heart. You know, Bremer was founded 75 years ago by an immigrant who embodied a closely held purpose of cultivating thriving communities. And today's topic is an important aspect of our business that we hold ourselves accountable to. We sincerely recognize the importance of home ownership. That's all about meeting our stated purpose of cultivating thriving communities. And we know that when every individual in our communities has access to safe and reliable housing, our communities are stronger for it. And when our communities are strong, so too are the economies within those communities. So this is why Bremer has prioritized home ownership as one of our key pillars of our philanthropic giving. We reflect our commitment in various ways And what I thought I would do today is highlight how that commitment to housing, especially, is reflected in our actions. One program that has been in place since 2017 and that has continued to gain momentum is the partnership Bremer has undertaken with Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity. So about 4 years ago, we helped Habitat launch a home buying program, which is called the Home Loan Impact Fund. And that really transformed how Habitat was able to serve its communities and actually resulted in doubling its impact. And even more exciting, I guess, than that today is that the Home Loan Impact Fund is now being used by other Habitat affiliates all across the country. And that's resulting in really broad impact well beyond the Twin Cities marketplace. Essentially, the substance of this program is based on a commitment from us at Bremer to purchase 500 below market Habitat mortgages over the course of several years. So essentially, the below market interest rate that we provide helps to subsidize that affordability gap, and it greatly increases the number of local families who can partner with Habitat on affordable home ownership. After 4 years into the program, the resulting impact, and I'll say that's measured only in numbers right now, is the fact that we've purchased close to 400 loans, totaling more than $70 million. To date, this is the largest single bank partnership for any Habitat affiliate in history, and that's something we at Bremer are particularly proud of. However, I'd be the first to say that I'd love to see some organization take on the challenge to beat that record. What's so clear in recent years is that the dream of homeownership has really become harder to achieve. And recent studies indicate that today, almost 500,000 Minnesota households spend more than 30% of their income on rent or mortgage payments. In fact, according to the Minnesota Housing Partnership, 1 out of every 4 families in Minnesota is paying more than they can afford for housing. And we know that, unfortunately, these issues disproportionately affect Black Americans. In fact, the Twin Cities has the largest home ownership gap between Black and white residents in the nation, which reflects the long-term effect of now illegal practice of racial covenants. And as we all know, the home ownership gap translates to a wealth gap, and that lasts for generations because home ownership still remains a key to building wealth and stability, which can be passed on from generation to generation to ensure that foundation of success. And so again, this is one of the reasons that why housing is so important to me personally. And over the years, I've learned a lot about this topic, and I've had some real immersive learning taking place as well, especially in 2018, when I was honored to co-chair the governor's task force on housing along with Akua Ellis from United Way. And so I, along with 27 other individuals, took a really an in-depth look at what causes some of these systemic and long-term housing issues and gaps. And we heard from people all over the state of Minnesota. We heard from employers, from educators, from builders, local officials, property owners, renters, and homeowners themselves. And hundreds of neighbors shared their experiences and along with the ideas, some solutions to help us understand what they regarded as the most pressing issues and hopefully promising solutions. We met with people who had experienced housing instability. We heard how transformative it was for people to and their children when they were able to find a decent and a safe place to live, what that meant for many other aspects of their lives. You know, we talked with employers interested in expanding their workforce in Minnesota communities, but they were limited by the lack of available or adequate housing for that workforce. You know, I learned a great deal serving on the task force, not only from my colleagues, but also from from so many experts who presented to the group, especially from my fellow Minnesotans. And after several weeks, the task force identified 6 critical goals to help provide more affordable and stable housing across the state. And in a quick summary, here's what we determined. First, we determined that we had to commit to homes as a priority by creating a broader and stronger public commitment to the urgent need for more homes that are affordable to more Minnesotans. Second, we know we needed to preserve homes that we already have, especially for those that are most affordable. Third, we recommended the building of at least 300,000 new homes by the year 2030 across all types, prices, locations, and that was all about stabilizing prices to meet demand. Fourth, we recognized that increasing home stability was a clear need, and we recommended additional assistance for many people at risk of losing their homes because of rent increases, evictions, or heavy cost burdens. Next, we recommended building stronger links between homes and services, focusing on where people live and the services that they need to live stable lives. And lastly, we recommended supporting and strengthening homeownership by creating pathways to sustainable homeownership with a focus on removing barriers for households of color. So within those 6 goals, we identified 30 potential actions to help meet each of them, each which we acknowledged with one critical truth. Without affordable housing, our communities cannot thrive. Affordable housing doesn't just help provide for stable, healthy families and communities, it also ensures that growing businesses have access to the workers they need. In nearly every facet, housing is a critical part of a community's success, and it's notable that this issue requires a commitment from not only the private sector, but people from every county around the state, philanthropy, and government at all levels. We all have a role to play in solving these many, many issues. So as I mentioned earlier, Bremer was founded by an immigrant whose legacy is integral to who we are and how we work. Otto Bremer was a dedicated leader, and he was deeply involved in supporting communities where his banks did business. He recognized that the success he achieved was a result of the support he received from members of the community. And he believed that if banks were there for communities during both good times and the hard times, then those communities could thrive. And Otto Bremer's commitment to cultivating thriving communities continues to define Bremer's purpose today. And it's reflected in how we execute our work. It's reflected in our culture, which recognizes the hard work and skills of an immigrant and an entrepreneur. And we recognize that immigrants are a vital part of our economy and of our local communities. And it's notable that the African immigrant community in the Twin Cities has a collective income of over 1.6 billion. Studies have also shown that in the African immigrant community, these are individuals that are more likely to start their own businesses and to be entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial. These same studies also reflect African immigrants that are readily available and readily evolved to be members of their local communities, very active in charitable giving and in community support. We recognize at Bremer, and we want to work with the kind of people and neighbors like these that each one of us strives to be. So in closing, I just want to acknowledge that while home ownership is part of the American dream, we know that home buying is a complicated and can be a long process. Currently, the average time to find a home is about 4.5 months. And then you can add on to that another month plus in order to close on a home as well. And that takes time. Financing can also be complicated, determining which product type, understanding credit scores, home inspections, appraisals, closing costs. It's quite a laundry list when you think about home buying. And then for a first-time home buyer, it can be especially daunting. And that's why today's webinar is, I think, especially beneficial. Today's speakers, those that you're going to hear from, are here to help provide resources, guidance, and tips to help navigate that home buying process. So thank you, Seal and the MAL staff, for your incredible work in putting today's event together. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jeanne, for your remarks this afternoon. Attendees, my name is Libby Starling. I am in the Community Development and Engagement area of the Minneapolis Fed. And we are happy to be a part of this as part of serving out our mission to serve the public by pursuing a growing economy and stable financial system that work for all of us. So Jeanne, I have a few questions to kick us off this afternoon. So you mentioned several times in your remarks that Bremer Bank was founded by an immigrant. Otto Bremer. So I'm wondering if you can share with today's attendees what lessons you think Otto Bremer would have for today's immigrants.
Thank you so much, Libby. It's a great question. I think that when I think about Otto Bremer, I talked about this, but I imagine he would say that as you become successful, you should never forget about those who helped you along the way. I think he'd especially reinforce his sense of supporting the local communities who supported you in your journey. Otto started out as a banker, but he also became a philanthropist. As he realized his success, he prioritized giving as something really especially important to him. And again, giving back to the communities that helped him in his journey. And during the Great Depression, as an example, he used his personal savings to save a lot of other smaller country banks from failing, including those that weren't even banks that he owned. So along those lines, I think he would say, stick together. It's really evident that Otto Bremer wasn't afraid of hard work. And so with that, I think working hard, a little bit of luck, certainly along the way, he was able to realize a legacy of success. So I think he would say, work hard, give back, and support each other.
Thank you. Would have been an honor to meet the man. So you also mentioned in your remarks today that the home buying process can be daunting, and certainly that's what's drawing people here today. What is Bremer Bank doing in order to make the process of buying a home feel less daunting, particularly for first-time home buyers?
Yeah, it's such a great topic, and it's so wonderful to see this happening. We have a variety of mortgage products, everything from conventional loans to VA to FHA, and loans that require little or next to no down payment whatsoever. And so we're paying attention to try to understand what products that make a difference. So we also have an affordable housing loan product called the Bremer Gateway Community Mortgage Program. And that Gateway program is designed especially to assist low and moderate income applicants in securing affordable housing. We also have a lot of local knowledge. Any mortgage officer that you work with will have knowledge of your specific market, be able to guide people through the process. We've just got really great people that are ready to answer questions as needed. And then lastly, our website is full of resources. We have a mortgage resource center, including checklists for home buying, educational videos in multiple languages, and just that alone is a great tool that helps unravel a lot of these issues of home buying, many which are sometimes missed.
Thank you. And before I move to the final question I have for you, I would like to extend an invitation to our audience members to ask questions in the Q&A that's available at the bottom of the Zoom. So my final question for you is, what do you see as the biggest challenges that face first-time home buyers?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges facing first-time homebuyers is just sometimes the issue of knowledge. If you've never purchased a home, it's an experience filled with lots of terminology that is likely unfamiliar. Down payments can also be a challenge. Families who currently own a home can often find the equity when they sell their current home to help purchase a new home, but it can be tough to start from scratch, especially from a financial standpoint. So one simple example just in the whole world of finance is that credit history. And sometimes first-time homebuyers, that it's just too short. And that can make it harder to get approved for a loan. We have a great panel, I know, coming up here this afternoon. And I know one of Bremer's best, Tiffany PHILLIPS, is on that panel. And I know Tiffany and other panelists will have an opportunity to share a lot of their home buying knowledge. And hopefully helps shed some light on that process. There's various programs to be aware of, and hopefully help people avoid some missteps and just to create additional knowledge along the way.
Thank you. So we have some audience questions, which I will give you the option of either taking, or we can table for Tiffany later on today's panel. The questions are about interest rates. So what the interest rates are on the Gateway mortgage you mentioned, and if there's special interest rates for the various programs that Bremer has.
Well, that I will defer to Tiffany because she's the specialist in that regard. I'm not close enough to it and don't work with it every day, but I would say that, you know, we're still, I'm just going to offer the fact that we're still in a very low interest rate environment. It's been a protracted long-term low interest rate environment, you know, so it's a good time to be considering buying it. You know, no one can ever predict what happens with rates, but they still are in a what I would call a very low range compared to historical rates. And so it's a good time to be looking at that. But as far as a specific rate, Tiffany can certainly help in that regard.
Thank you for that. And one final question that has come through, which again, you may want to take or you may want to defer until Tiffany's time on the agenda, is how long does it take to be approved for a mortgage? Yes, how long does it take to be approved for a mortgage?
You know, it can happen fairly quickly if you have all your information set to go. So it's really personal. I'm just going to say it's customized to each individual. Again, I think Tiffany can better answer that for someone specifically depending on their situation. And there's just all these ingredients that come together in terms of your own sense of timing. If you have a home to sell, if you have, other characteristics of what you're trying to accomplish in the home buying process. So it's going to be very personal, very individualized, but it's something that actually can happen fairly quickly, given if your readiness to make it happen quickly.
Thank you for that response, and thank you for your time together on the panel. So on behalf of everyone you can't see, I thank you for your time, and thank you for joining today's panel with Minnesota Africans United.
Thanks so much, Libby, and again, congrats to all involved here. Appreciate being a part of this. Enjoy the rest of your program.
So now I would like to transition us into our experienced panel. So as I say your names, I hope each of you will turn on your video and join us. So it's my pleasure to introduce the three members of the experienced panel, starting with our first panelist, NELIMA SITATI MUNENE. NELIMA is an executive director of the African Career Education and Resources Incorporated, known as ACER, which is an issue-based policy organization working in the Twin Cities to advance equity, especially within the African immigrant community. Next is LAURETTE LAWSON. LAURETTE is a subrogation associate at Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I'm hoping that she'll explain to us what a subrogation associate is. Prior to moving into the health insurance industry, she worked in the mortgage industry for 13 years, and housing remains a passion of hers. The final member of our experienced panel today is AYODEJI Emmanuel OYEBOLA. He is the founder of Emmright Consulting, a company that provides business management and consulting services to small businesses. So welcome to all three of you. Before we move into some of the common questions, I'd like to ask each of you to take about 2 minutes to further introduce yourselves, including describing your work, your country of origin, and broadly, how you came into the housing work. So with that, I'm going to ask that we start actually from the end with Emmanuel.
Yeah, thank you very much, Libby. My name is AYODEJI Emmanuel OYEBOLA. Most people call me Emmanuel because that's easier to pronounce for most people. But Libby, I want to actually commend you because you pronounce my first name perfectly. So that's very good. Thank you for that. Like I said, I'm the founder and principal of Emmright Business Management and Consulting Services. Most of what I do focus more on small business, and sometimes I work with nonprofits at the same time. And most of my business focuses on helping businesses to do what they do best, looking at their processes, looking at business management services, how can they perform to be the best, basically, and also be efficient, be effective in everything that they do. There's something that I didn't say. I'm originally from Nigeria, West Africa. And at the same time, when it comes to housing, actually, I'm here as an experienced homeowner. And at the same time, I've been in the rent world as well to be able to answer questions and provide my own insight on my journey to become an homeowner, how I've been trying to kind of stay to be an homeowner at the same time. So I'll be glad to do that. Thank you very much.
Next, I welcome NELIMA to provide her introductory comments.
Thank you, Libby. Yes, again, my name is NELIMA MUNENE. I'm the Executive Director of ACER, Inc. ACER is the African Career Education and Resources, Inc. How I got into working in housing, I became very interested in housing. It was, I think, about 2006, 2007, during the height of the foreclosure crisis. I was working in North Minneapolis at that time, and we started, and I was also at that time a board chair of one of the charter schools in North Minneapolis, and we started noticing that a lot of the families were dropping out and a lot of people started losing their homes. And if anyone remembers what was happening during the height of the foreclosure crisis, there was a lot of displacement that happened. It had a huge impact, not only in our state, but especially in the community of North Minneapolis. And as has been stated earlier, there was a lot of community wealth that was lost, as a result of the foreclosure crisis. And so we became very interested on the front end, first of all, to help work to help people preserve their housing so that members of our community would not be displaced. But after that, I became very curious to know, why did the foreclosure crisis happen? Why were people of color, communities of color, disproportionately impacted by the foreclosure crisis? What are some of the measures that can be taken to prevent such a thing from happening in future? And also, how do we just, protect our communities in general, and also housing being a great asset where people can accumulate wealth and build equity in? How do we ensure that Minnesota does not continue to have the largest home ownership gap between people of color, and especially the Black community and the white community? So I've been at it since that time and continue to work on housing.
Thank you. Laurette.
Thank you, Libby. My name is Laurette LAWSON, and I am Subrogation Associate, like I said, like Libby said. Subrogation Associate is, I work with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So in the insurance department, when you get into an accident, a fall in a house or in a business, or you get into a car accident or a work injury, we set files that allow us to recoup the money that the health insurance spent on your injuries from a third party, which is your car insurance, or if you have if you sue the other party's insurance, like the other car insurance, if you sue them, we try to recoup our money that we have spent in the process for the injuries. We try to recoup that money. So that's what I do. I'm originally from Togo. I come from West Africa, Togo. And housing, I do not own a house right now. We're trying to, but I've been renting, and housing has been just a passion for me. I worked in the mortgage industry for about 13 years. When I came in Minnesota, that's the first industry that I worked in. I worked at Blue Cross Blue Wells Fargo, GMSC, and I stopped at GMSC. Actually, I was laid off because of the housing crisis that happened in 2006 and 2007. And way before that, housing has just been a passion for me. I just like seeing people being happy in their houses, in their homes. And I see how difficult it is to get one in here, especially when you're a minority or you have a low income families. So just want to help in that matter, just helping people getting into houses. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Now, building off of the end of Laurette's comments, I'd like to ask each of you to think about what changes in practices or policies you'd like to see the organizations that are represented on our response panel later consider or implement to improve the home buying process, particularly to the benefit of the African immigrants attending today. From personal experience working with NELIMA on policy advocacy, I'm sure that she has thoughts on this. So let's start with her.
Thank you, Libby. So just real quick, I mean, when it comes to especially the African immigrants communities as new Americans who come here, one of the most important things is just having access to resources and the knowledge. ACER was founded upon that premise because we knew that we needed to connect our community members to the information that existed out there. So community engagement within the African immigrant community is very important, making people aware of what resources exist to begin with, and fostering trust. That requires, fostering trust and working from the ground up. One of the things that we know now is that there's a historical context to why there's a huge gap between the white community and communities of color in home ownership. There's a lot of racial discrimination that exists. There's a lot of steering. We also know that there's a historical context of a lot of displacement has happened within the Black community, and and we still see that, and a lot of gentrification happens when redevelopment happens. And so, from a policy perspective, it's eliminating those things. What policies and structures can we put in place to make sure that when we're redeveloping areas, that there's not displacement and gentrification does not happen? Definitely more funding. Would like to see more funding put in place to address discrimination and to continue support the Fair Housing Act. So we need more funding for testing to make sure that there's not steering and discrimination continually happening. And the bottom line is we just need more investment in housing. As Jen stated before, a lot of people are spending easily 50% or more. It's actually 50% or more of their income on the mortgage alone or rent alone. And so there's a great need for making housing affordable, and there definitely needs to be more investment in affordable housing. And I'd like to emphasize that it's an investment, because a lot of time when you talk about affordable housing, people look at it as if they're doing people a favor, but it is a great investment because the return on investment for our region and our state as a whole is great.
Which of you would like to take this question on next? Thinking about changes in practice or policy? Emmanuel, Laurette?
I can go.
Laurette, welcome.
All right, thank you. So changing in policies, we have a lot of people. There is a language barrier sometimes. Coming from Africa, you come here, you want to get a house, but you maybe speak English, but you don't speak it as well as you should. And on the process of buying a house, I've worked with a mortgage company. I know there's so many papers, so many things to look at and to sign. And I feel like sometimes people just sign stuff that they don't even know about. They just signing because they want to get into the house. So if there can be some more, I don't know how that can be done, but if there can be some more, like some classes that could educate these communities on how and what it is to get into the process of buying a house. I think that could be a very good thing. The down payment, the closing fees, those are things that sometimes block people, because you look at it and you're like, where do I get 20% from? And the houses are so expensive that those 20% can be like a life-saving for someone, maybe not even. So if there can be policies that could change those a little, like some workaround that can allow people to have more opportunities or to get more, I don't know how to say that, but to get educated on that side of it. And credit stories. Sometimes your credit story, you just got here, or it's not long enough, or you don't have any, or it's not good. So if something can be done in those areas, I think for me should be a good thing too for the African community.
Thank you. Emmanuel?
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you very much, Libby. NELIMA and Laurette have said, I think education is key because knowledge is powerful. Even we've had it many times, they say knowledge is power. And at the same time, also, I want to emphasize something because, this kind of webinar is the best because you can learn a lot about owning a house, renting a house, because I say that knowledge is power, but to me, knowledge sharing is superpower. You gain more from it, you understand all of those things. And they've talked about education. The other thing I would talk about also is predatory lending. We see people, when they lend money to them and everything, the interest rate is ridiculous. There is no way they can afford that. And from that begins to destroy their credit. And then they won't be able to buy a house anymore. So all of those things play a role because even though it's not direct, it's indirectly linked. But if your credit is ruined because somebody gave you a loan that you cannot repay, all those things, it ruins your credit. So those are the things that I'll feel that, especially from a bill side or what needs to be done, I think something needs to be done on that. And I applaud the city, I think city of Minneapolis for what they are doing regarding capping rent increase. Because I think, for example, at this moment, the increase in rent, sometimes you see somebody will say the increase in rent is 50%. That's a lot. But I think they are capping it to 3%. That will help a lot of people to kind of stay in their homes, especially in this difficult period. But not only for now, it should be even almost everywhere, even in America, because not capping the increase in rent is allowing some immoral landlords to do whatever they like. And those are the things that I think we need to really look into.
Thank you. So after we conclude the experience panel, and I would encourage our attendees to submit questions for the panel using the Q&A. All three of you are immigrants to Minnesota from Africa. And thinking about the various organizations that are represented on the response panel coming up next, what do you want the response panel to know about African immigrants and any unique challenges that African immigrants face in buying homes in Minnesota? Laurette, would you like to take this on?
I sure can. I would like them to, being an African immigrant in Minnesota, in the US, I came here like 20 years ago. Renting first was crazy because we didn't have any credit story. We got here, but it was so hard. And I was like, was there like another way for us to do that? We had to find people to be able to get into a house, to raise a family, because we couldn't just get into one by ourselves. We just got here. So if something can be said in that manner, I haven't bought a house yet, but I know people that have. I worked in the industry. Like I said before, language barrier, so many things to read that, because it's not your language. You're just like, why do I have to read all this? They just signed the papers and get themselves into trouble, because that's put a lot of people in trouble in those 2006, 2007 crisis, because they just signed paper. I know people that were out of their houses. Foreclosure happened because they didn't know that it was going to change like that, that something like that's going to happen. So if we can get ideas on how to work on those, how to educate the community. So when they come here and they want to get into that, there's like a committee that can be set in place and just explain all those and just teach all those different difficulty that we encounter coming here. Thank you.
NELIMA, would you like to continue in thinking about what our response panel should know about African immigrants and unique challenges that African immigrants face in buying a home in Minnesota?
Yes, thank you, Libby. So I totally agree with everything that Laurette has mentioned. Language is usually a barrier for folks. I think it is important for them to know there are also unique challenges that face African immigrants by virtue of their immigration status. The immigration status is a huge barrier. And it, if you know anything about immigration policy, it's always a moving target. The rules are always changing all the time. And from the work we've done around housing, we also know that immigrants face a higher hardship when it comes to housing, whether they are renting, they're being targeted, by unscrupulous landlords. And also just, accessing a mortgage is way more difficult. I mean, even currently just opening a bank account by the time you get here before you get a social security number, which might take you a longer time, is an issue. I think helping people establish a credit history. So there are many tools that we know that can help people to be able to establish their credit history, whether it's working with people to make sure that if they're paying the electricity bill and etc., paying their rent, that it can be reported to a credit union so that they can be able to establish a credit history. Another issue that we run into a lot is what type of housing exists for people, right? One of the number one issues a lot of people talk about is the size of housing, whether it comes to renting or just housing, right? A lot of folks have large families, but also just building culturally, what we call cultural appropriate housing, is important. So looking at the needs of the African immigrants, what do we do in our homes? How do we center that in the types of housing, the type of housing that that we're building? And then another thing I'll say is just having the right investment. Just having the right investment. There's a huge need for more affordable housing within our community. And just in our state as a whole, right now, the biggest need for affordable housing is among folks who are at 30% area median income. And nobody's really building, housing. Nobody's really running out there to say, let's build housing at 30% area median income. And I think we need to address where the greatest need is, because what that does is, there are a number of people who would be able to move up out of the 30% MI housing, but right now it is not available. And so we need to address where the greatest need is so that people can be able to get into the housing and we can have more stable communities. Thank you.
Thank you. And Emmanuel, what do you want our response panel to know about African immigrants and the unique challenges that African immigrants might face in buying a home?
All right, thank you very much. One thing that I know NELIMA kind of spoke a little bit about it is culture. Definitely, coming here, when I came here, even from my own experience, it was a culture shock. I was lucky because I was living with my sister when I came here, but being able to go around, how do you get a house? Because the way we rent a house, the way we buy, we own a house in Africa is different from here. Most African countries, you build your house. Once you build, you're done, you're not paying mortgage, you're not paying even all these things, they're different. But when you come here, you have to learn the way the system works. And like you said, the key thing is education. People, because we can't expect the system to change completely because of us only. But the key is, how do we educate ourselves? At the same time, there are things that can change for sure. But one of our key things is our culture of home ownership is different from American culture of home ownership. They're two different things. And the main thing is understanding the way it goes here. And we've talked about it also, what happens when people get loans, bad loans, all of these things. Being able to know this is the way the system works, this is what I need to do, is very important to home ownership in the US.
So before I ask each of you the final round of questions, I would like to remind our audience to add questions to the Q&A, and we'll start those after this final round of questions. And Emmanuel, I'm going to start this round with you because you have said that you are a homeowner here, and I believe you said in Africa as well. So the question here is the best piece of advice you have about the home buying process in America, or at least in Minnesota, that you would like our attendees to know?
Thank you very much. Part of what, there are a couple of things that I actually have on top of my head that I can think about. The first thing is know the kind of loans that are available to you. Because I remember when I was buying a house and everything, I was looking at what's available to me. I tried to go to everywhere, and I got a loan for sure. But at the same time, I could have gone with other options that could have been available to me at a cheaper rate, or even sometimes that won't require me to pay some form of fees. So knowing the options that are available to you in terms of loans and everything, that's the first thing that you need to know. The next thing you also need to know is about the difference between the FHA and the conventional loan. One of the most important one with FHA, conventional loan requires to have 20% down payment. FHA makes it a little easier, but there is a catch there with MIP, mortgage insurance premium. And that's one thing. I mean, I remember when I started paying it, when I look at it, it was a big chunk of my monthly payment. And it's not going towards my principal, it's not going towards everything. It's basically going towards premium insurance. And those are the things that everybody needs to understand, is having knowledge of the things that you need to know before you jump into it. The next thing is, like we've talked about it again and again, gather useful information. Talk to previous homeowners, talk to realtors, and make sure you have a good realtor that has your interest at heart. Because I've seen many realtors that they are keen, even they will push you to buy a house that they know is overpriced, because the higher they can sell it to you, the higher the percentage that they get. So these are all of these things, is making sure that you know what you are doing, know how it's going, and these are all the things. And the last thing I will talk about is building your credit. When we got our first house, I didn't know much about building credit. I was lucky. My wife has very good credit, but then again, my home credit, hampered our interest rate, because I didn't build my credit. And every time I see new immigrants right now, the first thing I talk to them about is, let's make sure we get you a credit card, but when you get it, be responsible with it, because credit card is a slippery slope. But it's a two-edged sword. It can lift you up and it can destroy you if you're not very careful with it. So I give them that advice. At the same time, knowing what you can afford before you buy any home. Everybody wants a very big home, beautiful home. But if you cannot afford it, you jump into it. The earlier you jump in, the earlier you're going to jump out. So that would be some of my advice that I can give.
Thank you. Laurette, you mentioned that you are in the process or are not yet a homeowner, but you have worked in the mortgage industry. So I'd like to ask the same question of you about what's your best piece of advice about the home buying process?
Yeah, thank you. Best piece of advice, like Emmanuel said, for sure, build your credit when you come. Because we come and you don't have a credit, and you think someone will tell you, oh, get a credit card and you'll get a credit. And it's so easy to just get that credit card and have a bad credit, actually, instead of building that credit. Because you just come and you're like, oh, it's easy. I can buy something and pay later. No, when you don't do it right, you just get into trouble. So I think get a credit card, but get educated on how to use it, how to build that credit that can help you get into that house that you want. Not the biggest house, maybe not, but just get a house that you can afford. That's the second thing, because you come and you say, oh, that's a very nice one. Oh, if I can get into the bank might just give you that loan that can get you into that house. But like we said earlier, if it takes like 50-60% of your income, there's nothing else you can do in that house. And you need to think about all those, the loans that you can get for that. What are the interests? What shop around for good interest rates for the banks that offer good interest, and explain everything, gives you more detail. And get a realtor. I think it's very, very important, and a good one, someone that you can trust, not someone that will make you buy a house because of his interest, because what he wants to gain by you buying the biggest or the more expensive house, but someone that will give you good advices and put you in a house, just a roof over over your head for you and your family, but that can help you in building that wealth that we're talking about, and not something that will put you in trouble. So I think for me, those are the most important part of the home owning process. Thank you.
Thank you. NELIMA, what is your best piece of advice on the home buying process?
So, yes, in addition to what Laurette and AYODEJI have said, I think it's a process. Just know it's a process and be patient with the process, especially when you come and you have to build the credit and etc. And as a homeowner myself too, one of the things I really appreciated and I'm glad I invested in is doing a home buyers class. Yeah, I mean, there are resources out there you can take. Doing the first time home buyers class was very good, especially for me. Why? Because I learned how much work home ownership will be. I mean, home ownership is great, but as a homeowner, there's some days I feel like I wish I had a landlord just to call to come and fix this. And so it really prepared, because owning a home is just the beginning, maintaining your home and making sure that it really continues to do for you what you need it to do, whether it's preserving that equity and providing housing for yourself so that you don't get into trouble, and, just having, putting some funding to the side to repair the home, to maintain it, because you're going to have to do that. And also emergencies happen, and you're making sure that you're going to be able to pay your mortgage is very important. And then there are lots of resources out there. So take your time, reach out to people and find out what resources are out there that exist. And there are many, there's the traditional way and the mainstream way of building credit. I think right now, among especially a lot of nonprofit organizations, they have various tools and programs that can help you build your credit in unconventional ways. So do not be discouraged just because you don't qualify for a credit card or if your credit is short. And that may be the case for a lot of people. We've come across a lot of people who don't have good credit and they just don't know how to rebuild their credit. So rebuilding your credit is a possibility, and folks should definitely look into that. And use a professional when you're buying a home. Look for a good realtor. There's the Minnesota Association of Realtors. Check to make sure that your realtor still has a current license and is in good standing. Don't get yourself in trouble. Read all your documents. You're allowed to ask as many questions as you like. Do not feel pressured to signing documents. Just read your documents and make sure you understand them before you sign on the dotted line. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. And we do have some questions from the audience specifically for some of the pieces that this panel has been raising. And NELIMA, this question I'm going to direct to you, which is there's a question about steering. So a question about how do we address the discriminatory practices of realtors who refuse to show available homes in some neighborhoods to Black households, especially Africans?
Yes. Excuse me. I think I said in my earlier comments there, there needs to be more funding put into being able to use the Fair Housing Act so that there's no housing discrimination in that area. But also just knowing that you can just going out there and finding another realtor. I think one of the things I want people to realize is that when you hire a realtor, they are working for you. Right? When you hire a realtor, they're working for you. And so if you're interested in seeing a home, your realtor should be able to take you out to see their home. And I don't care even if you've signed a contract with them and they're not providing the services that you contracted with them to provide. Look for another realtor, but the steering issue is definitely a conversation that we need to continue raising and need to continue calling out and lifting up in the community. I think you can call the Minnesota Association of Realtors if you feel that, if they're a member, if you feel like you have been treated unfairly, definitely call the Attorney General's office. And our current Attorney General is very committed and dedicated to housing and has staff who are working on housing. The Better Business Bureau is another place that you can that you can, that you can report, because a realtor is also a business owner. So I just want to encourage people that you do have a right to look at the housing that is available and that you want to live in. There are other options. So you definitely do not have to feel tied to a certain realtor, but definitely report it, because the more we report these issues is the more they're going to be addressed.
Thank you for that. And now I'm just checking to see if there are any other questions for this panel. I'm seeing no questions right now. Any closing remarks that any of you would like to share? I'll look for if any of you are jumping off of mute.
Yeah, something that I will say is, especially, I will encourage everyone, and I know that it's going to take a lot to become a homeowner, especially, I mean, building your credit, doing a lot. But as much as you can, I will advise you, if you can, please do it. Because owning a home is both for security and an investment. I mean, we know that is a bedrock of all success. I mean, having a roof over your head is a bedrock of success, but making sure you own the one that actually belongs to you, because when you own one, definitely you are building wealth for the future. Definitely, I mean, you are putting money in your investment. You are investing. Definitely, I mean, I know it requires maintaining your home, doing a little bit more than what you are doing, but definitely, but owning a home is crucial, because it gives you security for the future. I mean, for your family. At the same time, you have an investment for the future.
I will echo what Emmanuel has said. I mean, I'll just keep echoing to people. Do not give up. I think the other thing I want to say is also just real quick, there's a variety of home ownership, right? And so sometimes looking at a single family housing can be very intimidating. It might be way expensive, etc. You can have a starter home, and whether you start from owning a condominium or a townhome and eventually owning a single family home. So there are various steps, but it is definitely, a great investment in the United States. I think housing is the greatest investment for most people. And so, for us as immigrants, when you come here, I'd encourage everybody to participate, in that economy. It is a great way to build wealth and to build equity and to secure, a roof over your head. Thanks.
Laurette, final words?
Sorry. Yeah. So as Emmanuel and NELIMA said, I'll still say the same thing. Don't be discouraged because you don't have a credit, or because it's too expensive out there, or because it's intimidating. Just keep pushing it, and it's for your future. If it's for your children, if it's for having a roof over your head. So just thrive and learn and educate yourself and get there. Thank you.
On that inspirational note, thank you to our experienced panel for sharing your thoughts, ideas, and wisdom. So thank you to all. And now we'll transition into the response panel. So I'll be introducing the 4 people who are on the response panel, and I hope that they will turn on their video as I introduce them. So first on our panel is Tiffany Phillips. Tiffany is a mortgage CRA loan officer with Bremer Bank. In this role, she helps first-time and often first-generation homebuyers realize the dream of homeownership, and she also teaches the first-time homebuyer classes that we heard our experienced panel talk about. So she'll have a lot of wisdom. Next with us is KASEY KIER. KASEY is Assistant Commissioner at Minnesota Housing, the State Housing Finance Agency. And in that role, she leads the Single-Family Housing Division, which promotes and supports successful home ownership through homebuyer education, counseling, and outreach, and provides financing for a variety of affordable lending programs for low to moderate income Minnesotans, including the single-family home mortgage, home improvement, and community development programs and productions. Welcome, KASEY. Next is Julie GUGIN. Julie has served as the Executive Director of the Minnesota Homeownership Center since 2007. The Minnesota Homeownership Center empowers smart homeownership choices through education, research, and partnerships, grounded in the belief that sustainable homeownership has an essential role to play in fostering diverse, vibrant communities statewide. And our final panelist is Larry Mahoney, founder and operator of Asia Direct Resource and a realtor at eXp Realty. So based on some of the questions that we heard in the previous panel and that we've seen in the Q&A, I'd like to start with Tiffany. So between the comments that the experienced panel received and the promise from your CEO, Jeanne Crain, that you would share your home buying knowledge with us and help our attendees avoid the usual missteps, what should the audience know about the home buying process, particularly if they're a first-time home buyer?
Thank you, Libby, and thank you for everyone for being here. I think the key thing to know is you are not alone. As the previous experienced individuals talked about, it's important to get a good realtor. You can certainly shop for a realtor, making sure you're connected to the individual. And there are a lot of resources out there available to you to help realize the dream of homeownership. As Libby pointed out in my introduction, I work with a lot of first-time home buyers, most of them first generation homeowners, as I was when I purchased my home about 10 years ago. And I understand the importance of the journey. And so that key is understanding you're not alone and the fact that there are tons of resources out there for you. The key questions earlier today were about the process. A lot of people want to know about the process. And I say most pointed point is it's more achievable than you realize it is. There are a ton of myths in the industry where, like even Laurette mentioned, 20% down. That is daunting, especially for a first-time home buyer that may be in the lower moderate income space. That would be a daunting down payment to come up with. Good thing, first-time home buyers, you typically need, and first-time home buyer would mean you have not had ownership interest in a home in the past 3 years. So if you're a first-time home buyer, you can typically get a single-family home with 3 to 3.5% down, depending on if you're using conventional or FHA as a product. And then for some people, 3.5%, 3% down can be pretty daunting. The great thing about that is there are programs to help so you don't have to come out of pocket with that. KASEY is going to talk about their programs at Minnesota Housing. Most of my clients use that program. So you're not alone, and there are a lot of professionals here to help you. And I love working with first-time home buyers. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Tiffany. I hope all first-time home buyers have the opportunity to have someone as enthusiastic as you are.
Thank you.
So KASEY, could you talk a little bit about the programs, resources, and support that the state of Minnesota makes available to support home ownership and first-time home buyers?
Great. Thanks, Libby, and thanks, Tiffany, for talking a little bit about our programs. At Minnesota Housing, we provide home mortgage and down payment and closing cost programs for low and moderate income home buyers across the state. Our loans are originated through participating lenders throughout the state, and we have 2 main mortgage programs. So we have the Startup Program, which is focused on first-time home buyers, and the Step Up Program for repeat home buyers or for current homeowners that want to refinance a home or purchase another home or a new home. We also have 2 types of down payment and closing cost assistance loans. So deferred loans and monthly payment loans of up to $17,000. So as Tiffany mentioned earlier, you know, there's a myth that people think they need 20% down to purchase a home. And Tiffany mentioned that you can buy a home with as little as 3 or 3.5% down. You can also use down payment and closing cost assistance that's out there, including Minnesota Housing's down payment and closing cost loans. So deferred payment loans are 0%, 30-year deferred loans. We provide up to $15,000, and it's repaid either at the end of the term of the loan or when the loan is paid off or sold. We also, for more moderate income homeowners or home buyers, have monthly payment loans with low interest rates that are paid back over a 10-year term. And we can go up to $17,000 on the monthly payment loans. And homeowners with our programs, if you've got the 3 or the 3.5% down programs, you can come into homeownership with as little as $1,000 down under our programs. And so those are the main homeownership programs we have. We also have additional other programs that once you own your home, help you stay in your home. So home improvement loans up to $75,000. Rehab loans up to $27,000 at 0% deferred. And then we also provide some funding for new construction through a competitive RFP process.
Thank you, Kasey. And before I turn to Julie, there's one quick question that has come in for you, which is, what do you consider moderate income?
So under our first mortgage program, so under the startup, it's based on household size. So in the metro area, you can make up to $104,900 if you're a 1 to 2 person household. And if you're a 3+ person household, $120,000. And then for our step up program, we go up to $156,000.
Thank you for adding that clarification. So now I'm going to turn to Julie as the Executive Director of the Minnesota Homeownership Center. We've had a lot of conversation both in the previous experience panel as well as in the chat about homebuyer education and homebuyer classes and how important they are. So could you provide our audiences a little bit more context for that?
Certainly. Thank you, Libby. Thank you, everybody, for participating today. I'm honored to be here talking with you about the work of the Homeownership Center. My organization is a nonprofit community-based organization. We work with other nonprofits around the state of Minnesota who offer first-time homebuyer education, financial coaching, and one-on-one counseling to anybody who is interested in pursuing home ownership. Research shows that for first-time home buyers, homebuyer education and counseling is key to being successful in the homeownership process. During homebuyer education, you learn about the process of purchasing a home. You learn about how much you can afford. You can talk to trusted advisors like Tiffany and real estate professionals who can give you advice on a range of products and processes that you will be facing when you go to buy a home. I think one of the most important things about homebuyer education is establishing the trusted relationship with a homeownership advisor. Some of the organizations that we work with, for example, in the Twin Cities area include the African Development Center and NeighborWorks Home Partners, PRG in Minneapolis, Neighborhood Development Alliance, so Community Action of Suburban Hennepin or of Hennepin County. So there are a range of people who are waiting to help first-time home buyers. And again, stressing that homebuyer education and counseling is extremely important. Of course, Tiffany shared that one of the myths is in home buying is that you have to have 20% down. That is not the case. And one of the advantages of taking homebuyer education or working with a homebuyer advisor is that having that education is sometimes required for loan products or down payment products that will help you get into a more affordable loan. So if you take homebuyer education, it opens doors to loans and down payment assistance that you might not otherwise be eligible for. So that's an added benefit of working with one of our advisors. Thank you, Libby.
Thank you, Julie. And now I'll turn to Larry and his colleague, whom we haven't introduced, as the realtors on our panel. So we've had a lot of conversation about the different pieces of the real estate experience. So from the realtor panel, what's going on today in the real estate market? And what do African immigrants need to know about this?
Thank you very much. I have to say, this is an outstanding conference. I am Larry Mahoney, and my associate Joey Clark. We're with the Exceeding Expectations team at eXp Realty. We are realtors. We have a great deal of experience working in the international community with a variety of ethnicities and cultures and people of color. We do not tolerate any form of discrimination, period. And I hate to hear from our associates when they have been discriminated against. We just hate that. Joy, can you speak a little bit about what exactly is going on in the market today?
So thank you, everybody on this call today. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here. And just a little bit on the market here. First, Minnesota, and particularly the Twin Cities area market, has the greatest housing shortage in the country, actually. And young people like us, like yourselves, are now entering this market as first-time home buyers. And KASEY, thank you so much for being part of the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. That has been an amazing blessing to so many families to be able to jump into the home ownership. And Tiffany, that you're doing these first-time home buyer classes. Actually, we would love to connect with you after this at some point. We do those as well, and I think it would be a great opportunity for us to all network together on that and provide the education necessary for families to understand what are their next steps. But houses still are selling quickly, not as quickly as they were over the summer months here. And again, the getting on that path to buying a home, there is a process. I know a couple of people have pointed out there's a process you need to follow. And we have that strategic roadmap that we have put in place. And it does start with just connecting with and then taking the first steps into the first-time home buyer class, understanding the programs that are available to you. Additionally, as Larry had touched on, and some other people there, as you guys probably know, there is a great housing disparity for people of color. And us over here at the Exceeding Expectations team and at eXp Realty, we understand this market and we know how to simplify the process for you. This does not need to be a difficult time at all. And we have the people, experience, and be able to make this process for you a pleasure. And so with that.
There are great opportunities available for the African immigrant community. You'll find working with our real estate team at Exceeding Expectations, we're with our clients all the time. We're available all the time. And so we become partners. We become involved in our clients' lives. It's a very intimate process, buying a home, looking for a home, and then finally buying a home. And we do this together. We work together on this. There are really great opportunities for the African Immigrant Society for buying or selling real estate. The market is very dynamic and you need to be working with realtors of experience and understanding. Joey, do you have anything you want to add to the opportunities?
Yeah, the other piece, let me see here, from Bremer Bank, Jeanne, thank you. Jeanne, you had touched on this, and this actually, I wrote this down in my notes here, but the founder of Bremer Bank was talking about work hard, give back, and support, right? And so one thing that we also wanted to extend over here within our team, and we understand that the immigrant culture is very entrepreneurial. And so in addition to helping homeowners achieve the dream of home ownership, we also want to connect with the entrepreneurial-minded immigrants who are interested in getting into this business. And we would love to lay the groundwork and help you get into this business.
I'd like to turn to KASEY now to pick up one of the questions that we received earlier, which is, what can you tell us about short-term, medium, and long-term trends in home ownership, particularly for Black households, and what the disparity is in home ownership between Black households and other households?
Yeah, thanks, Libby. Just so everyone on this call knows, Minnesota has one of the highest homeownership rates in the nation at 71.9%, but we also have one of the worst racial disparity gaps, with white households owning at a rate of 76.9%, while people of color overall own at a rate of only 43.6%, which is a disparity gap of 33%. That is the fourth largest in the country, which is not a good number. And over time, that disparity gap has not changed much over time. And even more disturbing is for Black homeowners, the homeownership rate is only 25%. So when you're looking at the disparity gap, and especially for the homeownership gap for Black households, we have a lot of work to do in that area. And as I mentioned, we made slight improvements prior to the Great Recession. We lost a lot of progress through the Great Recession, and we're just starting to come back, but there has not been a lot of variation over time.
Thank you. Now, from that, I'd like to turn it back to Tiffany, perhaps for maybe a more optimistic point of view than what KASEY had to give us, which is, could you talk a little bit about what Bremer and other banks are doing to make homeownership feel less daunting for first-time homebuyers?
For sure. I think it's important that banks have specialists that work with low to moderate income buyers. So they are more specialized in knowing how to handle households that may need additional funding. As Jean pointed out earlier, we do have our own affordable housing mortgage product called Bremer Gateway. And the benefit of the product actually goes to something Emmanuel talked about during the experience panel. It is regarding affordability and the fact that mortgage insurance can be added to your loan payment, making it more expensive for you to own that home. So our Gateway product does not have private mortgage insurance as part of that loan payment, then making that payment more affordable for an individual. As an example, I was working with someone and their mortgage insurance portion of their payment was $190. And I switched her from conventional financing to our Gateway loan. The interest rate is a little bit higher. So someone asked about interest rates, and Jean was very accurate in saying it's still a very low interest rate environment. It's in the about 3% range when we're looking at first-time home buyers, whether you're using your own funds or taking advantage of funds from Minnesota Housing. You can expect to pay in that 3% range, maybe 3.125 or 3.75, somewhere in there. So pretty affordable. So our interest rate was a little bit more, like 1.125 more. So her principal and interest payment increased by $40, but she did not have to pay private mortgage insurance because she used our Gateway loan. So that payment was more affordable for her by about $150. In addition, we work with a lot of down payment assistance providers. Minnesota Housing, their community-based programs that the cities offer, counties offer, and then local nonprofits also offer down payment assistance. So as I stated at the front, the key is understanding you're not alone. There are resources available. One of the myths I talked about is needing 20% down. You don't need 20% down. The other thing is credit. You know, I think that's one of the number one fears that people are afraid of when they think of starting this process. What is my credit going to say about me to the individual that's looking at it? Understand when you hire these professionals to help you on this journey, we're part of your team. We're part of your team to help this dream come true for you. And it may not maybe when I pull your credit, you don't have the mid 600 score that we need to move forward with financing at this time. But I'd be able to look at your credit and tell you some things that you can do to help you maybe be ready to purchase a home in the next 2, 3, 6 months. So the key is it is achievable for you, and it's important that you work with a lender that is going to have some resources, maybe have their own in-house program, or work with other community partners that can provide some assistance for that buyer, so they're not having to come out of their pocket with 3% of the purchase plus the closing costs.
Thank you, Tiffany. The next question, I'd like to go to either KASEY or Julie, or probably both. So the two of you can rock, paper, scissors on who takes this one first. And the question is going to the disparities and racial gaps that KASEY outlined for us. What tangible efforts are being done to close these racial gaps? And so I know that both of you can speak to an array of those. And then after that, maybe let Larry and Joey take that one on as well. So we'll start with KASEY or Julie.
KASEY, do you want me to go?
Sure, you can go first.
KASEY and I, our two organizations, work closely on an initiative called the Homeownership Opportunity Alliance, or the HOA. The HOA was formed about 5 years ago. We're now about 100 members strong, with representatives from the real estate, lending, government, and nonprofit communities. All of us are dedicated to a movement for addressing systemic racism and other barriers that are posed when people of color try to achieve homeownership in Minnesota. We accomplish this through a variety of initiatives. I lead a group called the Product Committee, and the committee has been looking at a variety of ways to develop new tools in down payment assistance, increase down payment assistance, and raise awareness about the existence of down payment assistance. One thing in particular that this group has worked on is we have developed a guide to zero interest financing in Minnesota. I think it's important for people who choose to pursue a zero interest financing first loan, whether it's through faith-based principles or other reasons. There are lenders in Minnesota that have zero interest financing products. And the guide that we have to those products is on our website, hocmn.org. I'll put it in the chat in a minute. And it shares who those lenders are with a presence in Minnesota, including Devon Bank, Guidance Residential, and UIF. As with any financing product, whether you work with one of those lenders, whether you choose to work with Tiffany and the wonderful products and people at Bremer Bank, or whether you choose another lending institution, we always advise, do your homework, compare the lending products. The first product you look at might not be the first loan that you choose. It's important to shop for what's right for you and your family, and do all of the steps that Tiffany has so eloquently talked about. So that's just one highlight on the product work of the HOA, and I'll turn it over to KASEY and she can talk a little bit more about her engagement.
I lead a group or a sub-team of the Homeownership Opportunity Alliance that's focused on community engagement and education. So what we've really learned is that we really need to get out into the community and talk to people, share information. Someone talked about earlier the importance of knowledge and education. There are so many resources out there, and there are so many people that can help. Julie's organization with Homebuyer Education and Counseling, really trying to get people who are interested in homeownership connected to that trusted homeownership advisor so that they can better understand the process so that they can address any challenges or barriers that they might have. We kicked off a campaign that gets to the get ready, be ready for homeownership, because homeownership is a journey. And the way we look at it is that no matter where you are on your homeownership journey, we have people, programs, and resources that can help. You could be ready now. You could be ready in 2 years. I think, you know, a couple people talked about the importance of even understanding the banking system, understanding how to avoid scams, understanding what is the best product for me? Where do I even start? So those are all things that we can help with. And in the Get Ready, Be Ready campaign, it's really about getting ready for homeownership, understanding that it is a difficult process, and getting that knowledge can help prepare you for homeownership, and then also can help help you sustain successful homeownership over the long run by knowing what to expect and knowing what products are out there. We are also going out to different meetings and communities. You can find us at different events. You know, some of the events that we've been to include Minneapolis Urban League Days or Rondo Days, and just getting into that community and getting the information out there. We also have some materials that we've put out in multiple languages. So we do have some materials in Spanish and Somali as well.
Thank you, Kasey. And now turning to Larry and Joey, what tangible efforts are being made to close these racial gaps from the realtor perspective? I believe you're still on mute.
Go ahead. Okay. We see an increase in activity, an increased population of first-time homeowners as people of color. And maybe that's not registering yet. I don't know, but we see that. We work with this a lot. And as part of that, we would like to encourage the African Immigrant Society to consider real estate as a career opportunity. We need more people of color as realtors. We need the African community to participate as realtors, and we are offering a scholarship fund to MAU, the Minnesota African United, to help encourage this activity.
Yeah, absolutely. We plan on donating 5%, putting that into a fund for specifically the Minnesota African United community to go towards helping pay for their schooling. If any of them are entrepreneurial and would like to become real estate agents, and they would come and work with us under our guidance, we would help educate, help get them licensed and ingrained within the real estate community a little bit more, with hopes and efforts that would also help the disparity between the racial inequality gap.
So a question that just came in is, what do you need to be a realtor?
Perfect. So go ahead.
You need drive. You need to want to do it. People might think that being a realtor is a piece of cake. It's hard work. So you need somebody that really wants to do that, and come work with us, and we'll help you through that process.
But realistically, on the process of it is starting within real estate schooling, getting your real estate license. It can take as quick as about a 5-week process, or you can take a few months, 3 to 6 months to get your license, depends. But if anybody is interested in that, then if they put their contact information on there or whatever, we can put ours on there and reach out to us, and we will get you plugged into the schooling systems to help point you in the right direction to get your license that way.
Perfect question, that was. Yeah. Perfect.
So changing gears a bit, the question that I'd like to throw to anyone on the panel is, what myths about the home buying process would you like to dispel? So we've heard some about needing 20% down payment. Are there others that people would like to dispel, eliminate from our home buying conversation?
I'd like to speak to that. There's been a lot of conversation about how difficult the process can be. And I don't really see that. It doesn't need to be difficult. It needs to be understood. And you need a good teammate as a realtor to work with you as a home buyer, to walk you through the process and keep it simple. Don't let it become complicated. But make sure that all the options and choices are on the table and that people understand what they're doing. And it really becomes simple and fun.
Yeah, it needs to be fun. Don't let the process become overwhelming at all, you know.
I'll piggyback on that and say it's only, I think it can be frustrating if the individual isn't totally ready, right? So a question came up earlier and Jean said it's all about your readiness. So the pre-approval process itself, I can get a person approved within 1 business day, right? So they complete an application, provide income and asset documents that, you know, speaking to how much funds you have, what your income is, which helps me determine capacity. Can you afford the mortgage payment you're looking to get from the bank? So it's about understanding what your capacity is and knowing that credit is a fluid thing. So I think that's the biggest fear, as I mentioned earlier. It's fluid. So if you're not prepared now, you may be prepared in 2 months. So don't get discouraged and know that you have teams available to help you realize the dream.
Thank you. How about Julie?
I think one of the biggest myths is that I won't qualify. And while it's true that homeownership might not be for everyone, there are many programs that will help you address your credit, as Tiffany suggested, and get you to a place with your credit where you qualify for the optimum products for your household, which I think is key. You need to be able to afford your payment or you won't be a successful homeowner. But there are ways to get qualified. There are ways to address what your current credit is. There are ways to address past bad marks on your credit. There are ways to shop for down payment and lending tools that may, again, help you with that affordability. There are over 70 down payment assistance programs available throughout the state of Minnesota with varying requirements. So if you're struggling with the down payment, talk to somebody who knows what those down payment assistance programs are. Those can help you qualify. Talk to somebody who understands the different loan products that are available. Make sure that you're not stopping with the first loan product, as I said earlier. Tiffany mentioned their gateway product. There are other first-time homebuyer products too, each with different terms and affordability levels. So that's where it can get complicated. Is if you do take the extra effort to search for the loan product that will get you the best deal in the location where you want to live, you need to do a little bit of homework. But again, trusted advisors like Tiffany, Larry and his team, and the nonprofit organizations that we work with are there to help you with that process.
Can I pick
Casey? Let's go to Casey for myths she'd like to eliminate.
One of the things that we hear a lot at the agency is that a lot of people just don't know if they can afford home ownership. And with the interest rates at historic lows, home ownership can be very affordable, and home ownership can be even less than renting, depending on the market or depending on the home that you're looking at. So, you know, for people that are interested in home ownership, get more information, reach out. there's help and there's information and there's education, and you don't have to do it alone.
So I'd like to encourage audience members to ask your questions in the Q&A as I ask my final round of questions for our panel. So I'll go ahead and start with Larry and Joey. We've thrown a lot of information at our attendees today. So what's your best piece of advice you'd like them to take away with about the home buying process?
For us, we're here to help empower and build a bridge for the Minnesota African United community via increasing family wealth through home ownership.
That's right. That's well said. We want to partner with our clients and be with them every step of the way, and don't be afraid of it. And it's always a good time to buy a house.
Tiffany, your best piece of advice.
My best piece of advice would be, if you are remotely interested in realizing this dream for you and your family, connect with a trusted advisor to see what steps are needed for you to realize the dream. Because like I said, even if it's not now, it may be in the very near future. So if you're remotely interested, go ahead and make the call.
Julie, best piece of advice.
Set a goal and go for it. Homeownership changed my life. It can change your life too.
And KASEY.
Homeownership builds wealth and stability. There's a lot of options, a lot of resources. Connect with that trusted advisor and start on your path to homeownership.
So moving into some additional questions that we've been receiving from our attendees. One question that appeared earlier that Larry and Joey, I'd like to direct to you, and this came up during the experienced panel in some of the regrettable conversation about steering. There's a question, can I stop collaboration with my real estate agent when I've already signed a contract with them?
I'm going to let Joey tackle that.
Yeah, thank you. So if somebody's doing something in a negative or unlawful, unethical way, then at that point, I would say that I would have that conversation with that specific agent, address that issue that came up, or you can also reach out to the Minnesota Board of Real Estate Agents or that agent's broker, and always report any cases of any kind of steering, because it is absolutely wrong and should not be happening in our community.
That's right. And the bottom line is that contract can be null and void.
Thank you. A question that has come in for KASEY. What are the restrictions on sharing or renting rooms or space to individuals if a household uses a Minnesota housing loan?
If you purchase your home with a Minnesota housing loan, there are no restrictions if you are, if it continues to be owner occupied. So if you rent a room, that's okay. But the home does need to be owner occupied.
Thank you. A question for Larry and Joey. I don't know if you're following, but there's a lot of enthusiasm in the chat and the Q&A about becoming a realtor and the entrepreneurs program you mentioned. So one is, how do people sign up for the entrepreneurs program that you mentioned?
I'm going to put, I'll put Larry's contact information in that chat box right now. And then if you want to touch on that piece just for a moment.
Sure. It's, you know, becoming a realtor is first you got to get the education piece taken care of. And the education piece can be in a classroom, or it can be online, and it can be as short as 4 weeks to get through the education process, and then take a Minnesota licensing test and a national licensing test. And you can get the whole process done in 2 months, and be a licensed realtor, and come to join our organization, and we'll give you further training and instruction, and you become a realtor and off you go. It's really not difficult.
But mostly, as I put this contact information there, please reach out to Larry. We'll schedule a time to get together with you, and we will discuss how we implement that and how we plug you into the actual schooling systems. But we're looking to put together a scholarship fund for it. So for the many people, I can't read it. The screen's a little far away, so I haven't been seeing that. But we'll go back through and take a look at that as well. And however much interest is on there, you know, we'd be happy to collaborate with every single one of you that has put any information on there and try to smooth that path out for you to become a licensed real estate agent with us, which then is going to help all of us empower the community together.
Thank you. One of the themes in some of our conversation has looked at programs to repair credit. And one of the specific questions that we've received is in the context of survivors of gender-based violence. So I'm wondering if Tiffany or Julie can talk about programs that help survivors of violence to move into homeownership, or more broadly, programs that help individuals repair troubled credit.
I can start. I can't speak to any program specific for survivors, but I will say a lot of the nonprofits that offer housing counseling also offer credit counseling. So when you look at PPL or PRG in Minneapolis and NEDA in St. Paul, they can provide guidance. Your lender that you look to start the process with can also provide guidance. And these resources are available to you at no cost. And I typically have these conversations with someone that may not be ready credit-wise, and talk to them about how there are truly free resources to help you. So you don't necessarily need to go to some of these firms that may charge you a few $100s to give you advice about repairing your credit. So the Homeownership Center, and Julie mentioned it earlier, where there are education courses in there. It can also direct you to counselors that can also provide resources.
Yeah, more and more our industry understands the importance of programming that is sensitive to individuals who have a history of trauma. So the organizations that Tiffany mentioned who work in our network are sensitive to that and can work with those individuals. In addition, I'll share two organizations who do quite a bit of work in the African immigrant community that are not necessarily, that don't necessarily provide homebuyer education and counseling, but can help you look at your credit and put an action plan in place that will include eventually going to a homebuyer education organization. And those two organizations are ISARUN and SACAN. And I will make sure and get the contact information for those organizations to today's hosts. Thank you.
So that concludes the questions that we received in the chat, but we do have a little bit more time on our agenda. So I'd like to give each of you 30 seconds for closing thoughts. We'll start with KASEY.
First off, I just want to thank all of the experts, the panelists, the experienced panelists, and all of you for attending today. I think, you know, there has been so much great advice, experience, resources that have been shared today. So it's up to you to take the next step. Know that even if you do have barriers, there are resources that can help, whether it's building credit, whether it's repairing credit, whether it's knowing how much you can afford, or knowing what the resources are out there. There are resources that you can connect to.
Thank you. Tiffany.
I'll end with saying, as I mentioned earlier, I was a first generation homeowner when I purchased my home. I immediately saw the benefit of becoming a homeowner. I have a son who's now a junior in college. He just became, more stable as he was growing up. And I see, the value of my home has increased like three times more than it was worth when I purchased it. So some panelists have talked about how creating and building wealth, one of the easiest ways to accomplish it is through home ownership. So just know that that is, in fact, a true statement. And there are tons of professionals in this industry that would love to help you become a homeowner and realize that dream.
Larry and Joey.
Go for it.
That's exactly right. We want to help you own a home. Everybody deserves to have a home and to enjoy that process. We want to help you with that. One last comment that I do want to make is we also have a pathway for the Muslim community with Islamic funding. Julie touched on that a little bit, and we can help with that piece also. There are no barriers.
And again, my face was close to the screen there this last time, so I actually put the correct email in there. I apologize. So the first email you saw, please do not email that one. Email the correct one, and we'll get you all the information that you need to know about how we're going to help you become a real estate agent, which then helps us reach the community with a much wider net, and then allow the opportunity for every single one that wants to be a homeowner that opportunity. Thank you guys so much for the time today. We appreciate it.
And Julie, close us out from the Minnesota Homeownership Center.
Thank you, everyone. I'm so proud that you're taking the first step towards becoming a homeowner. Thanks for having me. Thank you all for participating. And my request to you would be, please be an ambassador for others in your community, your family, and loved ones, and share the trusted information that you heard today so we can continue to spread the word about how to successfully pursue home ownership. So thank you all and good luck.
And with that, I hope everyone will join me in thanking today's panelists on our response panel. And I will turn it over to Basile to take us home.
Thank you so much, each and everyone, for taking the time to join us today. Basile Ajo is my name. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Minnesota Africans United. Minnesota Africans United is here to help build wealth amongst the African diaspora community. And the core aspect of that wealth building is housing. 2 years ago, when COVID hit, one woman called my phone with 2 kids, crying and asking for help where to live. She needed just a bedroom or a place she can call home. She believed that everything that resembled a home a roof over her head has been taken away. She doesn't have any life of her own. She was referred to ACER, one of our partner member organizations. And ACER helped her take advantage of the resources that the Minnesota state has to offer. They completed our application process. She got help, rent, where she was able now to get a stable home. She created an environment for our children who are not able to learn. After that safety net, she said, I have to pay back and I will be an ambassador. I started working so hard and referring people to Minnesota State, Minnesota Department of Housing for support, and all the other community organizations that are helping home ownership for the African diaspora community. Because there was someone who held her hand and made her laugh to the bank. And she later on got a job and she stabilized her life. And she said, now I'll become realtor because I'm out here to break that disparity gap between the African diaspora community in Minnesota. I'm here to educate my people, my friends, my brothers and sisters from other mothers to take them to a better place they can call home. She found that as a second job, and she found that as a business. And she found that because she wanted to do what they call community building, working hard and giving back to the community. Words that we received and heard from the CEO of Bremer Bank, CRAIN, who told us about the founder of an immigrant who became a founder of Bremer Bank. That is what Minnesota African United does, helping to make sure that we are the voice and the safety net for the African diaspora community, helping you to access the resources that are available within our community. A fund today has been created to help your diaspora African community by our partner and our member, Realty firm. We ask you to take all these messages over here back to your community. We will work hard to send this video back to you. We'll put it in all our social media channels. So anyone who feels like she's away and feels out of place, we have resources. We have Bremer Bank. We have Minnesota Housing. We have Minnesota Homeownership Center. We have XP Center. We have ACER. We have all our members who are here to help us. Do not stay home and put your hands up and say, I surrender. We are here to help you. Thank you, a big thank you to our always mother of the house, Dr. FATIMA, for always taking the chance to stand up for your children. And to JEANNE CRAIN for taking time from your busy schedule to give us a vision of what Bremer Bank does for the community. Tiffany, we cited all people like Labbing to the Bank, and I believe you'll see many African immigrants Labbing to the bank to ask you for help. Please open your doors. KASEY, you have been working so hard with Minnesota Housing, helping families stay under the roof. We want to say thank you to you. LAURETTE, we cannot do without you as a family member from Togo. You are part of us at Emmanuel. LIBBY, without you, the program would not have run so smoothly. And Larry, our partner, we are so honored. And all in all, the chair of African Housing Committee, KLARK, you worked so hard to put this pieces of event together. And with that, in conclusion, thank you to our founding board member, NELIMA, who is the CEO of ACER and former board chair for Minnesota Africans United. We are so proud for all the distinguished work that you all have been able to do. And now it's time for me to officially close this event. But before I do so, like our website, become members of Minnesota Africans United so we can help all people access home ownership programs. Go and pay and become a member, a paying member, and join us in building a scholarship fund for our community. Thank you, and it's time now to hear a last video that we will play that will showcase the culture of Africa. Thank you so much, and may God bless all of you.
Welcome to Africa, a continent that once upon a time was the center of the world. Africa, the promised land, the world's second largest, a massive, rich and diverse continent whose vibrant culture consists of intriguing, fascinating tribes and traditions. Do meet an extraordinary people from 3,000 diverse tribes and be blessed by their grace, candor, and legendary hospitality. The melting pot of cultures stands out as the continent with the most fascinating attires, dance, traditions and customs, and an array of languages spoken by its close to 1.4 billion people. Embrace the world's youngest continent with a vibrant, youthful population that is ready to offer an enormous potential, huge enough to transform the vast continent to a hub of economic extravaganza. Mother Africa, the cradle of our forefathers, is also an abode to the most spectacular wildlife viewing on the planet. From east to west, north to south, you find a mind-boggling number of wildlife and flora. Standing early at the site of an astounding diversity of wildlife in the continent's breathtaking game reserves, unlock Africa's tourism potential and discover a tourism Eldorado known to shake hands with over 60 million global tourists annually. Mother Africa is arising as her children from afar light up ahead, but joining the opportunities of trade in their enduring continent.